Hi everyone, and welcome to Staying Safe and Sane During COVID-19. I'm Stacey, I'm the General Manager for ATC Live. We are an independent booking agency based in London and represent around 350 artists, including Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, Metropolis, The Lumineers, Fontaine CC, Passenger, and Big Thief. Today we are going to be talking about staying safe and sane during the COVID-19 crisis. The competitive nature and kind of the stressful nature of the live music industry has been well documented. And in the face of COVID-19, we as a collective music industry are facing our biggest crisis in our living history. Today, we're going to discuss how to protect your mental health and well-being while dealing with the huge changes and uncertainty that we are all facing today. So I'd like to introduce the panelists that we have joining us. So we have Stefan from Goodlive. Stefan, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, hi everyone. I'm Stefan Lehmkuhl. I'm sitting here in Berlin. I live next to my office. The company I'm partner in is called Goodlive. Quite suitable name at this moment, Goodlive, but let's make it a good life. For live music, we promote 5 festivals in Germany. The biggest one, we partners in Lollapalooza Berlin. We run Melt Festival, Splash, and we run a booking agency called Melt Booking. So we canceled around, I guess, 1,000 events for the rest of the year, including 5 of the big festivals. And in the middle of this, looking forward to.
Thanks, Stefan. And then we also have Tamsin from Music Industry Therapists and Coaches.
Hi, I'm Tamsin Embleton. I used to work as a festival and venue booker, and now I'm a psychotherapist. I specialise in working with trauma and with creatives and music industry professionals. So aside from the therapy work, I run a group called MITC, the Music Industry Therapists and Coaches. We offer workshops and trainings, and we're writing a book called The Touring and Mental Health Manual, which has been backed by Live Nation. Hopefully when everyone's back on tour.
Yeah, and we have Andy from Music Support.
Hi, my name's Andy Franks. I am a tour manager by trade. I've worked in the music business for nearly 40 years now, which is a very frightening thing to own up to. I've toured with a lot of the world's top performing artists, been very fortunate. And 5 years ago, I helped co-found a charity called Music Support, which basically is a charity to help people with drink and drug issues and also mental health problems. And we've now been going for 5 years.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you for everyone who is watching. This is an interactive panel, so if you would like to submit any questions, you can do so in the comment section. So my first question to everyone, overnight, practically the music industry has been turned upside down. Approximately 75% of the music industry has currently been furloughed. Album campaigns, festivals, and headline tours that have been months to years in the making have suddenly been cancelled or postponed. What are the feelings and the experiences that people will be currently going through right now? Andy, would you like to answer this?
Well, I think people will be suffering a number of issues, really. I think shock is probably one of the first ones that people wonder what's going to happen to their business and whether it's whether there will be a business to come back to. I think that people are also experiencing there's probably all kinds of stress that's happening, not only from the worry about whether people are going to be going back to work again, but also the fact that people are suddenly in a situation whereby they're with their families, not with their friends. quite a lot of people that are used to being on tour are used to traveling with a tour family, but not used to the families at home. And that for a lot of people will be a very different situation. There's also the problem of people that have problems with abuse, with drink and drug issues, and even, you know, family issues, or the dynamics of being around a family and the problems that that will sort of bring to the fore, I think, and exacerbate, because of the fact that everybody is in such close proximity. Obviously, different countries are experiencing things differently in Europe, but here in the UK, we're on our 6th or 7th week, I think, now of lockdown. We've been very lucky that the weather's nice, but even though the weather's nice, we're not really supposed to go out. So it's kind of dealing with your own mental health issues and your own well-being from a very enclosed situation, which I think is probably difficult for people.
No, completely. And I mean, Stefan, you're outside of the UK, you're in Germany. How are people feeling there?
We're quite lucky in Germany that the lockdown has been pretty soft in a way, and the country isn't as badly affected as the UK and some other countries. So we're very, very grateful for that. But the situation, as just explained, is obviously the same. It's a very, for everyone, of course, unusual situation to from one day to another to have this downshifting effect of slowing things down and getting used to that. I can say it from the perspective of someone who would have been very anxious about the situation 2 years ago. I think from the daily stress to this kind of silence. The emails get less. The daily stress level is just a completely different one. I personally, and I guess that's also the reason why I felt okay joining this panel, was changing my daily routines already a good year ago when I felt quite affected from the stress level of the industry in general after 20 years of running and promoting shows and events and going to parties and everything, and turned 40 last year and felt like I need a break from all of this before I get into serious trouble. So last year I did a lot of things that people have to do now from one day to another by choice. So I'm now personally in a situation where I can relate a lot to the anxieties that people might have now, but at the same time, I'm a little bit prepared because I was doing home office for about a year now. I was reducing my workload quite a lot in order to take some time for myself and recover from 20 years of music industry, which can be quite intense. So I think, personally, I know it's possible and to see positive effects also, but I can understand everyone who has struggled to adjust to this new situation, from going to shows every night and being with friends and having a drink out every now and then being locked in at home.
Yeah, completely. I think, there's been a huge displacement for a lot of people in so many areas of their lives. And, the music industry can feel like a family, especially when you are on tour and that's your network and your support system. And so much has changed so quickly. Tamsin, how can people kind of start to cope with such a huge change and start to come to terms with the fact that almost life as they knew it has changed for the foreseeable future?
Yeah, I think that epistemic uncertainty, that uncertainty of knowing when this will end and what will we be left with, is really hard to sit with. And we have to find a way of kind of coming to a place of acceptance, really, and that means acknowledging what's outside of our control, which I think is quite hard for a lot of people in the industry. That there's, we get a tremendous sense of accomplishment from being able to put on shows or perform. And this has kind of challenged, the way that we work, how we get, that sense of reward. So I think the first step is really kind of acknowledging what's happening, acknowledging that it's, it's not over and we don't have have like a reliable answer. You know, we don't have kind of that knowledge of what it's going to look like afterwards, and we have to adapt. We have to be flexible, you know, in our kind of day-to-day, in terms of being flexible around whether we're having a bad day or whether we need more breaks or whether we need to kind of structure our days slightly differently at the moment, but also, you know, kind of trying to be open to what happens in the future and accepting that, you know, we can control our immediate surroundings and our environment and our approach and attitude to that, but there are some things that are outside of our control.
Yeah, I think that's really important to acknowledge, is, you know, accepting what you can control and what you can't. And I think we can get very much, you know, caught up in worrying about the bigger picture and things that we can't control, and especially with COVID-19 at the moment, there's so much that is out of our hands. And to help with, you know, the anxiety and your self-care and mental health, it's important to focus on your environment and what you can control.
Yeah.
You know, the industry that we work in, it's so creative and it's so personal, and we have such a connection and an emotional attachment to our work. You know, we really do feel the wins and the losses, which is probably why there is such an impact on our mental health. With so much uncertainty in the music industry at the moment, you know, how can people stay focused and stay positive? I mean, Stefan, you mentioned yourself kind of the difference in your how you were last year to now, and how that you can look at more the positives of the industry. What advice would you give to people now?
Well, it also took me a good while to kind of start to not do what I normally do and look at my computer and my phone at every time of the night, in the morning, first thing in the morning, last thing at night. And when I decided to take a step back, that was already, you know, there were emails at all times, and I always thought I have to reply to them right now, until I realized, even while the business was still running, it is also okay to kind of put myself first, and then the work, and then what the stuff that I have to do, and all the things that are in my diary and stuff. So after I acknowledged that I finally can start focus on myself a little bit and realize what are the things that I was never able to do when I was working 60 hours a week and going to shows and all these things. And in the beginning, it was interesting to feel into myself first and see what were the things that I was missing. And obviously, as music is such a passionate thing and creativity, it's been always my hobby. So I kind of lost a lot of my hobbies over the time that I was working in this industry. Mm-hmm. But the things that helped me a lot was, you know, still keeping up routines, like waking up in the morning at a specific time and starting to get active. I mean, now in Corona times also, like I still get up at 8 a.m. and get dressed and don't stay in my jogging stuff. I like get into proper clothes, start my day with sport. I mean, I started meditation last year, which was a huge blessing for myself. It was a completely game changer in my daily life. Like I started several things of breathe meditations from yoga, and then I found a teacher who taught me TM meditation. And I do that since a year for 2 times a day for 20 minutes. And I would have always thought I could never do that, but now it completely works and kind of calms my mind. I was also getting into a lot of sports stuff and kept in contact with people on a regular basis and tried to kind of develop routines for myself that were different than the ones I was used to, which was going out, drinking, having having meetings all day and stuff. So yeah, that's helped me a lot to kind of get into new habits. And I realized everything that I was continuously doing over longer than a couple of weeks, especially when I wasn't sure if it's for me in the first place, And I had the time to try things out for a while, and I realized what they say is true, that everything we do for longer than 21 days, or especially maybe for 90 days, it becomes a habit. And I established so many new habits that I wouldn't want to miss now. And I think the good thing is the habits that I have now, once I would go back into full-time work and stress, I would definitely make sure to keep these habits. Now that I know it's always possible to put myself first and then work, and then I don't know, other things, as selfish as it sounds, the better I can be in the stuff that I do in job, or in kind of being in the moment with people and being mindful about situations and think about stuff. When I'm in balance with myself, I can be so much stronger for stressful situations that will certainly come again. And I think that's also the one thing that I hope people can realize now. Now is the moment to accept the fact that there is not as much to do as normally. Of course, we can also business-wise find things that we can prepare for next year and stuff. And I think a lot of people are doing that right now, kind of making next year very busy. And I think there's a good chance, like if we believe that there will be events and parties and festivals next year, then it's going to be a very, very busy year. So now we have a great chance to prepare for that stressful next year to come, and to kind of establish routines for ourselves and maybe also for the industry, and kind of calm it down a little bit and realize that things still can happen if they are not done within the next 5 minutes, but take a little longer.
Yeah, I think that's really important what you said, that you need to find some time to entertain yourselves with different hobbies, and music for us is such a huge hobby. And I personally was so looking forward to summer. Most of my weekends are spent at festivals, and I'm a little bit lost of knowing what to do this summer. But we now do have the time to put our energy and focus elsewhere. Some people have said, we've got a few comments that have come through, that it's a great time to start learning new skills and to do some online training. And someone has asked, actually, Stefan, what kind of meditation do you recommend?
Oh yeah, I mean, I started with breathing meditation because I was definitely a person that always thought meditation isn't for me. My mind cannot shut the fuck up. And I started, that's why it helped me to start with breathing meditation, because the breathing kept my mind busy. Like there's Kundalini yoga meditation and breathing techniques where you breathe like for 16 minutes, for example. That was my thing that I did for the first couple of weeks. And then I discovered transcendental meditation, like they call it TM, I guess, where you keep your mind busy with a mantra that you repeat for 20 minutes. And I did it with a meditation teacher, which I preferred over the apps, because I want to have something that I can always do and that I don't need my mobile, no phones and something. And that meditation teacher, I liked him because he said something like, if you really add one day after another, each other in meditation, every meditation builds up on the one that you did before. So every day of meditation will train your mind like your muscles when you go to the gym. And at one certain point, you'll be able to sit on the dance floor of Berghain and meditate while there's techno music around you and people. And that's quite true. I was meditating last year at festivals. When I was stressed at the festivals, I was finding a tour bus, sitting behind it, and kind of just did my 20 minutes of meditation. And it was like the best refreshing thing. I can post the link of this guy in the chat later on if someone's interested. I can totally recommend it.
Amazing. Do any of our other panelists meditate, or do they have any recommendations?
I don't, but I do some breathing exercises sometimes. It's really helpful for anxiety, and it engages the parasympathetic nervous system, which starts to kind of slow the body down. So often when we're anxious and we're stressed, we tend to hold our breath, or our breath gets very shallow. So really learning to kind of do those belly breathing exercises can bring your heart rate down a little bit. And I think as well, it's a really good point about an active mind, and how for some people, when you try meditation, it can kind of open up a space where, you know, you're flooded with kind of loop thought patterns or rumination. So transcendental meditation is helpful for that, using the mantra, and also things like body scans as well, because that gives you something to do. It gives an active mind, you know, it's kind of moving your awareness from different parts of the body, and then you'll kind of, it draws attention to where you're holding tension as well. So maybe your jaw, which is quite common, or your tops of your shoulders, whatever it is, and then you can kind of soften it, and it'll just help your body to kind of relax a little bit.
Yeah, thank you. And we've now got Jenni, who has joined us from Getahead. Hi, Jenni.
Hi, I'm so sorry. I had some major technical problems, which I've never had before. It's very frustrating, but it's nice to finally join you all. So a bit late to the party, my apologies. Hope it's been going well so far.
I'm glad that you managed to get on. Just give us a little bit of a background about yourself for those that don't know.
Yeah, sure. So I run a mental health and wellbeing organisation called Getahead. We launched in 2018. Initially, it was a kind of bit of a crazy idea to launch a 24-hour kind of health and wellbeing festival for the music and creative industries, a bit of a kind of a different initiative to some of the brilliant, I guess, mental health conferences and wellbeing festivals which exist. The initial idea really was to kind of do something which was a bit of a 24-hour experience to tackle health development and fun. So everything from yoga, meditation, well-being, talks on mental health, hacks, talks about from real life experience through to stand-up comedy and a big party. And my background is actually music industry. I've worked in events and festivals for sort of 20 plus years. So, have seen the first-hand struggles of artists and people working in the industry at all levels. So it was really important for me to try and do something to help support the next generation. Off the back of launching that, 2 years later, I've actually left the music industry full time, and I now run Getahead as my own business. So it's a 24-hour health and wellbeing festival. We're also working a lot in the workplace now, supporting companies with their mental health and wellbeing as well.
Amazing. Well, thank you for joining us. And I just wanted to remind everyone that the panel is interactive. So if you do have any questions, you can submit them via the comment section. I think it's really good for us to now kind of talk about the work-life balance. For pretty much all of us now, we are working from home. And for many of us, this is the first time. A recent study from the Mental Health Foundation found that 56% of people feel more anxious and stressed while working from home. So as the kind of blurred lines are there from our workplace and our home, what advice can we give to people to maintain a healthy work-life balance? Jenni, would you like to start?
Yeah, I mean, certainly speaking from personal experience, when we sort of began lockdown, I would say I was probably working 30 to 40% more than I had been previously. Getting up in the morning, straight to the laptop, maybe having a coffee, and before I know it, it's 6, 7 o'clock in the evening. And, you've forgotten to go and take a break, you've forgotten to go and stretch your legs. So I think, the initial danger of that is immediate burnout from working too much. So I think, I had to take a bit of a look at myself and, certainly with my business model, how I could then put some kind of boundaries and routine in place for myself to kind of try and achieve that balance. I mean, it's all about how you can achieve balance in your life. So, getting up in the morning, doing something that makes you feel good, whether that is some exercise, whether it's going for a walk, spending time with family, setting up your day ahead and making sure that you take time for breaks. So, most of us have been very used to commuting in the morning, spending an hour, 2 hours traveling. Take that time for yourself. Make sure you don't just spend that time working. Spend time with family. Take this as an opportunity to learn some new skills, things you've always wanted to do. For me, I hadn't, really been into exercise for a long time, and I've been exercising every day, which has been so good for my sort of mental and physical health. So I think it's really about kind of learning to find what works for you and what gives you that kind of clarity and obviously healthy body, healthy mind. Your productivity when it comes to work is so much better ultimately. So that, my recommendation is, minimize your working hours where possible and introduce, healthy routines into the day. Make sure, because we're in lockdown, you can't see people, get on the phone to friends, use it as an opportunity to see family members on FaceTime, speak to people you haven't in a long time. It really, really makes such a big difference.
Yeah, thank you. And Andy, what advice would you give to people that are kind of feeling more pressure now with the lockdown and, with the state of the live music industry in terms of kind of the pressure and the competition out there?
Well, I think again, as Jenny was saying, it's very important to have a structure about the way that you work and the way you go about your business. I think coming from a tour managing background, it's very easy to wake up in your hotel room and open up your computer, and immediately the first thing you do normally, and you've got a barrage of emails, and it's very easy to work in your hotel room all day long and go to bed at 1-2 o'clock in the morning and not really have seen the outside world. And I think it's again the same when people, when you're on tour, you're in a very foreign environment, and then people come home and they work from home. And again, I think when you start to work from home, it's very easy to have your stuff all over the place. Obviously, it depends what your home situation is. Some people are fortunate that they've got an office at home, or a bedroom, or somewhere that they can work from, and they can make it appear a bit like an office, so you get up in the morning, you do your normal sort of routines, and then you go in to your office, you start your day. Even if you don't have a room, you can set up, maybe somewhere in the living room or what you're doing to have your workstation, but go through structured times, so set that you're going to be there for a few hours, then you're going to take a lunch break. And I think, as everyone was saying earlier, it's so important, I think, to take time for yourself, to have exercise. Meditation, of course, is a fantastic thing. I'm very fortunate. I live by the seaside, so I can just go for a walk along the promenade, but just to have some fresh air, just to take, even if it's just 15 or 20 minutes, to go out and to recharge your batteries, really, to forget about work, and enjoy it. Even going to the shops, just go for a walk down to the shops. I know even that can be a bit difficult the way things are at the moment, but to do something that is slightly different, to take away from work, and then you can come back, recharge. But again, to try and structure how you're going to be when you come back, and to 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, to say, right, that's it for the day. I've finished work. Now I'm going to be around the family, or, it's, if you've got small kids, of course, it can be very difficult. I've got a very angry border terrier that wants to be looked after, so you have to balance when you can deal with the other issues around you, but to try and take time for both, to have the work set as work, and then to switch off from it and have your home life, your social life, even if it's just watching TV or something, but not picking up the phone and not switching on your computer, and let the brain rest from that and do other things. So you've got a clear break, because it's so easy to let stuff bleed in one thing to another. And I think for people that have been used to maybe going to an office and coming home, suddenly they're in this situation where they can be working very early in the morning to very late at night. And it's rare that you will find bosses or employers that will say to you, take time off, have a rest, while you're on the email or while you're on the phone. They're happy to have you there. So just switch off, say, that's it for the day. I'm having a break, I'm having a rest, and I'm now going to do something for myself, whatever that may be, even if it's just reading a book, even if it's just sitting looking out the window, do something that isn't work, and make sure that you have a real delineation between the two things.
No, I think that's really important, to set those boundaries for yourself, and to make sure that there is time in the day that is just for you for a little bit of self-care, because we're now locked in either on our own or with family that we probably don't spend as much time with because we are working so much. I think it is important to just take some time and kind of distinguish between the working hours and the home life, and also just to have a bit of flexibility. You know, there are people out there now that have their children at home with them and suddenly are teachers as well as working in the music industry. So, you know, be kind to yourselves and just take some time out. And I'm sure there's a way to kind of make those hours work and be flexible with your company and your boss, and just find a bit of time to get everything done, but also prioritize what is important at the moment while we're going through this crisis. And does anyone else have anything to add on the work-life balance?
I was just thinking about what we were talking about earlier, Stacey, about our capacity to work. You know, I've certainly noticed with me and with many clients that, you know, while we're in this period of high stress and high anxiety, our capacity to work is maybe not at the same level as it usually is. You know, the screen fatigue, it can be really exhausting. If, you know, a lot of your work is online and lots of video calls, and we're missing all those kind of daily interactions, you know, the man on the bus or the where you get your coffee and those kind of little kind of things that we take for granted maybe. So I think there's something about, you know, maybe readjusting, as people have said, the kind of structure in the day as well. Like I'm spacing out my sessions slightly differently now, and making time to kind of connect with people, not just the kind of bigger kind of online Zoom conversations, but just the daily little check-ins, just, you know, something short just to keep up contact.
I think also when you know, I've been to a number of AA meetings, and certainly not since the lockdown. But one of the great things about being in those meetings and the power of them is the fact that you are with other people that are in the same boat or suffering the same kind of situation. And I think, again, everybody at the moment, although there's different levels of how we're in our lockdown, some isolated, some with families, but it's also good to talk to your friends, your work colleagues as well, about how you're feeling, and talk about your feelings, because you may be going through a lot of pressure and a lot of stress and a lot of worry and thinking, oh my God, I'm the only one that's going through this. Why am I, you know, I can't deal with this. I used to be able to deal with my work and now I can't. This is terrible. And then you speak to all your friends and they're like, shit, it's exactly the same for me. You know, I had no idea. And so a problem halved is a problem, you know, a problem shared is a problem halved. They always say that, but it's really good to talk to people about how you're feeling and how your situation is, and you know, engage with people and see if they're going through the same kind of thing, and learn from each other. How we're all in a very new situation, you know, so let's combine to work out how we can get through it, and also pass that on to our friends.
Yeah, I've seen that so many people have allowed themselves to show their vulnerability recently. People that I would never ever have thought. You know, as we said, you know, picking up the phone and having a bit of a chat to somebody that you normally wouldn't do on a daily basis. And, you know, it's the whole question about it's okay not to be okay. But I've certainly found myself asking people so much more than normal, you know, how are you doing? How are you feeling? How are you coping with this? And the amount of people that have actually opened up and really shown their emotional side that never would have otherwise. So I think, you know, there are a lot of positives that are coming out of this. And I think the way we communicate with our friends, our family, our colleagues, coming out the other end of this is going to be really difficult, and I think there's going to be a lot of positive spun on it. You know, I've certainly opened up in a way that I never thought I would to work colleagues and people, and I think we're all very good at putting up a kind of barrier in front. But actually, it's in this situation, it's been so emotional for all of us. You know, the clap for carers on a Thursday night, you see all your neighbours crying in the doorstep. It's just that real time solidarity where people feel they can actually just kind of get together and support one another. It's been really lovely.
Yeah, I think that's so important, and I think we really do have that in the music industry, you know, especially when you are out on tour and, you know, you're spending, you know, 40 plus hours with your colleagues, and it's such a social industry for us, you know, the evenings and the weekends, and it probably is feeling quite isolating for a lot of people. We've got a great question that's just come through from a tour manager, and they're wondering, you know, during lockdown, feeling so isolated, can we recommend any support groups on Zoom or Facebook Connect for people to start reaching out and kind of finding people that are going through the same things as them at the moment?
Yeah. So there's a group called the Showmakers Symposium, which are tour managers and crew, and they're doing a weekly webinar on a Friday, if you look them up. And there's quite a few music industry groups. I was just trying to find where I've written them all down. The MITC have written an anxiety relief and self-isolation doc, which is about 50 pages long with a bunch of kind of tips and stuff in. But there's a few pages at the back that have got a rundown of where you can get some financial support and also the various groups that are up and running. Because there's a few over in the US and there's a couple in the UK as well. I'll see if I can get it up actually and maybe say at the end. Let's see.
That would be amazing. Are there any?
I think one of the advantages of this lockdown and that everything moved to Zoom is that you can find every self-help group in the whole world on Zoom. As far as I know, I was quite surprised to also realize that there is such a group as Workaholics Anonymous, for example, which was in the beginning, because when I started to work less, I realized how much of a workaholic I am. And that is also something to look at. And I think a lot of people, especially in this industry, might realize now that they miss work in a kind of unhealthy way, if you know what I mean. It's, you know, for me, it's been such a center of my life that I put it over a lot of things, including my health and everything. But therefore, I can say that, you know, whatever self-group there is out there, it's definitely on Zoom.
Yeah.
We at Music Support, I mean, Music Support is a charity that we set up to help people that are experiencing problems, and we've got a helpline that you can phone up and ask for help. But we also are working at the moment in conjunction with an organisation called Thrive, who very generously gave us a number of free apps that, well, you can log on to. If you go to the Music Support website, you can log on and download the Thrive app, and it's the only app that's approved by the NHS for well-being and for helping. It's a great thing to go through and sort of be able to check. It gives you lots of tips and information, not just music related, obviously, for everybody. And I'd really recommend people checking it out and having a look at that and finding different ways to help them get through. You know, there's as of course with the internet, there's so much information out there to help people if you want to go out and start looking.
Yeah, there's a really there's a really great app as well called the Hub of Hope. It's a more general signposting tool we work very closely with from the charity Chase the Stigma. It's a really simple, user-friendly app to launch, and all you do is put your postcode into it, and it signposts you to all of the local support groups in your area, and you can chat or speak directly to the Samaritans on it as well, if it's a more kind of general sort of support you're looking for. It's a really, really great tool. It's currently free to use as well.
Sounds great. I'll have to write that down. I've just found that I was thinking of, it's called Passenger Recovery, and so it's a music industry 12-step meetings that are now online. So passengerrecovery.com is one, and then there are so Backline and the Tour Health Research Initiative Union, who are based in the US, are doing sessions on Zoom on Mondays and Thursdays. So it's kind of like an open sharing space and then a meditation and grounding exercise. So you can find Backline online as well.
Amazing, thank you. I think that leads quite well into our next question. We all have mental health, regardless of our circumstances, and in this situation, there's going to be a huge impact when we start to really have time to think about ourselves and the world that we live in now. And for some people, they may be for the very first time being able to recognise their own mental health and emotional needs. what advice would you give to someone who is acknowledging this for the first time and maybe experiencing mental health struggles? And what support is out there at the moment for them during this crisis? Tamsin, would you like to start?
Yeah, sure. So the main services in the UK are music support, as Andy has explained. So that helpline is 0800 030 6789. And we have help musicians have a service called Music Minds Matter, which is 0808 802 8008, which I find really hard to say. I'm not sure why. Too many zeros and eights. So help musicians also have a process where you can apply to get some financial support to cover therapy or counselling, whatever is needed. So you can apply for that, and they have some hardship funds too, as to Musicians Union. And then for non-musicians, Backup Tech is, they also have some budgets as well for crew members or people who are struggling. And Live Nation have set up Crew Nation, which is also offering financial support. So the first thing I would say is please don't suffer alone. Like you can find someone that can help you understand what you're experiencing, help you to manage the symptoms of what's going on, and to find a way forward that makes sense for you. So do reach out and get some help. There are lots, like all therapists are now working online. So there's obviously Music Industry Therapist Collective and Music Support and various other places also signpost to get help too. And there's BAPAM, which is the British Association for Performing Arts Medicine. They've got various things that are running online at the moment, from kind of physical health, which can be very related to mental health as well. Injuries can certainly exacerbate things. So do check out what's there. And the people at any of these services will be able to help advise you on how to get some support. But yeah, it's really important that you don't suffer alone.
Yeah, I think that's the important thing is speaking to somebody. It's not sort of bottling it up. And I think the first step is actually putting your hand up and asking for help. And if it's somebody, if you're not ready to maybe go and get professional help, speaking to a loved one or a friend, and actually just reaching out to somebody in the first place, that's really the first step to actually, hopefully getting you better.
No, definitely. I mean, we've just had another question that's come through from someone, and I think it's so important to reach out and ask for help. But what advice can you give to someone if they're looking to support a colleague during lockdown who they suspect is struggling with their mental health? How can they broach this subject, especially as now we're not face to face, and it would be a conversation over the phone or Zoom?
Yeah. I think one of the first sort of things is obviously just to kind of open up and say, are you okay? However, normally you would communicate with them, if it's on WhatsApp or if it's on the telephone or if it's in Zoom, get them into a comfort zone so that they don't catch somebody off guard. If you're going to approach them about perhaps being concerned about them, try and do it in a comfortable environment for them, in an environment which you normally speak to them. Obviously, at the moment we're all remote, so you can't be with them in person, but I think try and get them into that kind of relaxed environment. Don't try and second guess what's going on with them. Don't try and tell them what you think is wrong with them. Just, ask the questions. If their behaviour is different, if they're acting differently, just sort of say, are you okay? I'm a little concerned about you. You seem to be acting differently. Just open it up in a kind of friendly manner. That's the kind of the first step, I would say.
Yeah, and be gentle. It can be. People don't always welcome that kind of intrusion sometimes. So be very, you can phrase it in a way that doesn't feel very direct or accusatory, or, I think the way that Jenni phrased it there was really kind of warm and open. And I've noticed that, behavior change is a big sign. If somebody's more irritable or angry or more withdrawn, or perhaps they're finding it hard to kind of manage their emotions, things are getting really big at the moment. Then these are signs that somebody might need some help. So you can help direct them to services and just keep checking in and let them know that you're there. And they might think about it and kind of take you up on the conversation a little bit later down the line. But I think that sense of safety is really important, because that's one of the things that is kind of compromised at the moment. So be aware that if somebody is going to open up, then maybe they need to, think about when you do that. Obviously, group chats wouldn't be an appropriate place to kind of have that conversation because it's not confidential. It can be a bit shaming. So yeah.
I think that's it. They need to know that it's purely confidential and that it's between you and them, and that they can trust you, and that you genuinely care about them, and it's not that you're trying to, as Tamsin, you're not trying to shame them or make them feel bad. It's just that you've noticed there are differences and you're a little bit concerned, and that you are there for them if they need the help.
I think one of the things that we found that was a real positive when we started with music support, I got involved because I'd lost my job through alcohol abuse, and the issue that I had was that I kind of felt that I was dealing with it on my own. And when you talk to other people, and even if you can't speak to somebody else, or your friend knows somebody else that they can have a chat, when you talk to somebody that's involved in our business, it makes a hell of a lot of difference than just talking to, as we always call them, civilians, people on the outside of the music business, because quite often the perception is that if you work in the music business, it must be brilliant. It must be so fantastic. You're so lucky working in an industry that we all want to kind of be in, or that everybody wants to. How can you possibly be feeling bad about it? So I think by talking to people that have got the same kind of experiences, or have been through something, or understand, can be a massive sort of first step by being able to open up then and be able to chat about things on one of the things I used to get with people when I chat to them was, they're like, oh my God, you get it. You understand, you break those barriers, rather than asking questions that perhaps will push people away. So I think it's important to chat to your friends, but try and get them involved in seeking professional advice, i.e., and organizations that there are out there that people are happy to chat. And sometimes, they're not going to do that first time. Maybe you've got to address it 2 or 3 times and pick your moments, because sometimes people want to push back. But it is quite incredible how people will open up as soon as they start to feel a little more comfortable and a little more relaxed, and feel that they're talking to somebody who's not judging them, but is just there to offer help and advice and listen. That's the big thing as well, is listening. It's so easy to tell people, in the same way that I'm just blabbing on there about this stuff. But when someone's got an issue, to sit and listen, and what's your problem? What are you worried about? And get them to try and open up about the situations, and let them talk about their problems.
I think that's it. Listening is the key thing. Letting them feel not judged, having some empathy, and just listening, because really they might just need somebody to talk to, just a problem shared, just have a good offload.
Yeah, definitely. And I think creating those safe spaces for people, I'm the general manager for ATC Live and ATC Management, and also that communication and keeping in touch with people is so important to us, like making sure that we are reaching out. Stefan, I know that previously you had said that you need to lead by example, and that your employees were so impressed when you did open up to them, and that you said it was okay to take a step back and slow down.
Yeah, I guess I realized how the people that employers, or people who run companies and who are very passionate about what they're doing, they're also so like they work so hard that maybe it puts so much pressure on the people who work in the company, or the people who look up at it, that they automatically think it's expected of them as well if the boss is doing something or whatever. But when I was quite open last year about I need to take a step back before I kind of become a victim of my own of my own passion for this business and for the company and for the work I always did. Some people were like, oh, I'm quite relieved to hear that, because that's not normal to, I think it's also in a moment like this to embrace, like, especially for people who are in the industry for a long time. I don't know, I started working my ass off in this industry when I was 18. So for more than 20 years, I didn't really took longer holidays. I was always available, and I never stopped going to concerts, shows, parties. I was drinking a lot and all these things. And it will, it does have an effect on people. And while I'm in the middle of it, I don't even realize it. I only do realize it when I stop, doing that. And I do realize the changes, and I do realize what I missed. And I can only encourage people who now have the chance to kind of, be forced to take a step back, to embrace that, and to feel what they were missing, and to keep that for the time after. Because this business, if you go into that daily pressure, and if you don't set the boundaries, and if you think it's expected and it's important and necessary, then you will pay a price for it after a while. And I realized I did more than I had to. Now I see not everything I did and not all the hours I worked were really necessary. Also, not the parties I did that I thought were important for my career weren't maybe as important for it as I thought.
Great, thanks, Stefan. I just want to remind everyone that if you do have any questions, please put them in the comment section and we'll try to include them in the panel. I think this moves on quite nicely to our next question. Previously, mental health hasn't been at the forefront of the music industry, but with everything that we're going through now, we have been presented with an opportunity for a healthier industry in the future. What do you think we can take away from this to try and help extract some meaningful change moving forward? Andy, would you like to start?
Well, I think, when we started our charity 5 years ago, I think it was very difficult to find. I certainly didn't know where to turn or who to speak to. And I think that nowadays the world is a very different place, and that there are a lot of organizations, companies like Live Nation have in-house mental health people in the same way that they had people that were there for first aid. So I think that companies are much more aware of the issues. They are much more open to the fact that that there are problems and issues at work, and that people should feel that if they do have problems or concerns or worries, that there are channels that they can approach and go through it. And I would hope that from the lockdown that we've all found ourselves in, that I think people tend to be a lot more aware of each other and aware of society, and are, dare I say, everyone seems a bit more caring at the moment. Whether that will last, I mean, our business has often seemed to be a business that doesn't care about people and spits them in and spits them out. But I think that there is certainly the opportunity now to take the way that people are aware of other organizations. You think about the NHS, and you think about the people that are really doing the grafting to look after us, that hopefully we can bring this. I think, we are all going to be very different people that go back to work than the ones that left. And if we can incorporate some of that into the way that we move forward, and the way that we think about people and think about our own mental and physical health, then it can only be a good thing, really.
Yeah, hopefully it's taught us all how to slow down and how to relax. It's such a fast-paced industry, but I'm aware that when things are up and running again, that things can get very, very fast, very quickly in our industry. You know, it's highly competitive, and these are some of the you know, the job insecurity and the number of workers who are freelancers in the industry as well, especially in touring in the UK. And we need to think about how do we make everybody feel included and valued, and how do we keep up the connection and maybe reduce some of the stresses a little bit. We've got a high number of vulnerable people in the industry on both sides, you know, on the stage side and as well in the music industry. And if you put vulnerable people in a high stress situation, you know, people are going to suffer. That we have really high rates of suicide, especially high rates of suicide and addiction. And so my fear for this is that maybe when we start to kind of ease back into things, you know, there's going to be a real rush. There's going to be a lot of work to do. And I think we need to, if we can pace ourselves a little bit, that would be helpful, because some people will need to grieve. You know, some people have lost loved ones and they've not been able to say goodbye and with the rituals and funerals that we would normally have. So it's going to take a while for this to kind of process for some people, I think.
I think that's it. I think it's how we can maintain those levels of self-care that a lot of people have introduced into their life as a result of COVID. You know, so many people have, as Tamsin said, learned to slow down, you know, introduce a better sort of routine and some boundaries into their day, you know, healthier eating, exercise, learning how to sort of, you know, spend better time with your friends and family. And I think if we can continue that in a positive way, that will help. I think the amount of self-care that we've been showing others through this time is leaps and bounds ahead of where we were previously. And I think that if we can all encourage ourselves and our peers and our colleagues to continue to look out for one another in the way that we have been in the past 7 weeks, I think that will help enormously. And I think, you know, there's definitely the danger that we're going to just go full pelt back to work because, you know, everyone's desperate to get back to it and, you know, get back to the crazy routine. But I think it's so important that we don't lose sight of the benefits that we have gained in the last 7 weeks, you know, in amongst all the tragedy and the negativity. And I think it's important for us all to keep kind of hitting home the signposting, the services, the resources that are out there, and the greater awareness of them that people now have that they didn't have 7 weeks ago.
Stefan, did you want to add anything?
No, not sure. No, I think I've said it all. I agree that next year might be very creative. Lots of more events, lots of great new music, you know, from artists who use this time to write music and stuff and want to go back on tour. So I agree with what we just heard. It's important to stick with to use this break to be prepared for the insanity that will certainly come back at some point, unfortunately. I mean, fortunately and unfortunately at the same time.
Brilliant, thank you. We are approaching towards the end of our panel. I was just wondering, does anybody have anything else that they wanted to add that we haven't covered? No? Well, thank you to our panelists for taking the time and joining us this evening, and everyone that has been watching. I hope this has been helpful for you, and especially those resources that we have shared with you. So please stay safe, and hopefully you can all find some time over this weekend for yourself and your mental health. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.